Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Today we're going on an in-depth tour of the Land Rover Defender 110. This is the new Defender. We have so much to talk about, so much to uncover. What we're going to be doing in this video is going on a detailed exterior and interior tour, and then we're going to set up all the settings and options. There's so much to go through. If you're interested in how the Defender drives, we have a whole nother video that will be going through how this car drives in the city, on the highway, and of course we take it up a canyon road, and it's actually really impressive at that. So without further ado, let's get into the video and let me show you around this thing. It's snowing up here at Horsetooth Reservoir in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's about 12 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so gloves and jacket for sure. But let's talk about the Defender. This is the 110 version, which no longer relates to the wheelbase of the car. Old Defenders, you'd have a 90, it was a 90 inch wheelbase, then you'd have a 110 inch. Here, it has no correlation. 110 just means it's the long one, and then there's a rumored 130 that's going to come out that will even have more trunk space and a bigger space for a third row. Now, is that really going to come or not? I'm not sure. I'm also not so sure that that's needed. But let's talk more about the specs. So come around with me here, and you'll see that this one's painted in Tasman blue. I think it's an awesome color, and I actually really truly do like this color combination, especially with the white roof. And you know that this one is an SE because it has a white roof. In the US, for the new Defenders, you can no longer get a white roof on anything but the base trim, which I think is a real shame because you know, some of the options in the Defender X Dynamic, which is the next one up, you can get an SE or an HSE of that. You have to get body color or black roof, and that's just not cool. Defenders are supposed to have white roofs. Anyway, you can see also that this is the P400, and we'll be talking more about that in our driving review. But the P400 is an inline 6-cylinder engine, and I'm going to go show that to you now. Popping the hood on the Defender is fairly easy. The latch is straight in the middle of the hood, and it's just straight up right here, which is really great. So this is the P400 engine. It's 400 PS, 396 American horsepower, and then also 406 pound-feet of torque. Plenty to move this car around. You know, we're up here at high elevation, a mile above sea level, and I've had this car up to about 9,000 feet above sea level. It was plenty to move this thing. The 4-cylinder certainly probably fine, you know, to get around, but the 6 just sounds great, and I love a straight 6 engine. I think this is really neat. At low revs, it kind of sounds like a diesel, which is pretty cool. And, you know, Land Rover says this is a mild hybrid system. And they are correct. It is a mild hybrid, but it's got an interesting little quirk to make it a mild hybrid. It has a supercharger that's electric. All it really is a turbocharger with an electric motor on the back of it that spools it up to like 22,000 RPM in milliseconds, and that feeds compressed air into the main turbo, which is exhaust driven, so it's called a turbo, not a supercharger. And that's how you get your mild hybrid system. It also has a 48 volt electrical system, and it also has a belt integrated starter motor. So when you do start stop, it doesn't, you know, use the starter motor every time. It just, the engine's on and you don't feel anything. It's really nice, actually. It doesn't do very long start stops though. Other mild hybrids that we've tested will sit for 1, 2, 3 minutes with the heater on and AC on. This doesn't do anything like that, unfortunately. The styling of the Defender, I mean, is there much I need to say about it? We all know it's beautiful. We all know it's a really good design. I really love how chunky it is, especially from where you're looking at it here straight on. That is just a meaty car. And adding to the meatiness of this car, I think, are the optional off-road tires that are spec'd on these. And they're just Goodyear Wranglers, but man, are these actually really good tires. The problem with speccing factory off-road tires on a lot of cars, they hum and roar on the highway. These are really quite good on the highway, I thought, and they have tons of grip on the pavement. Really good off-road as well. We had a whole video dedicated to off-roading this car, so that will be coming. And I'm excited to show you how good this car is off-road. It's truly impressive. But I would 100% spec the off-road tires. I think it takes your top speed from 120 down to 112 or something like this, but that's fine. You're not going to be ripping around in a Defender anyway. So we need to talk about some design elements as well. These are little air intakes, and I believe this one's a blank on the passenger side. Only on the driver's side does it actually feed air into the engine. And what that means is you can technically have water coming up over the hood, and it can still breathe through here as the water is coming down. So I'm pretty sure this car floats before it drowns itself, which is super neat. There's cameras underneath the mirror here that are not only used for 360-degree view, but that are actually pointed at the wheels. And what that does is it helps you with off-roading, so you know exactly where your wheel is doing and where it's placed. That's really neat. It also has camera systems that will show you underneath the car, so as you drive forward, it remembers the view that you just passed, and it shows you what's going on underneath. That's super, super neat. You know, Doug DeMuro has a Defender. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen his videos. He thinks that the body side clad molding, the wheel arch protection is needed. I totally agree. I think this looks unfinished. If I was speccing one, I would definitely get the dealer installed extended protection here for the sides. And then you get these things, which I really don't know what they're for. They look cool, I guess, but yeah, they're for you to really mount your accessories on, so you can get a ladder or a box. And I haven't tested one with them, but I would imagine you'd get more wind noise and less visibility. But I would 100% get the Expedition roof rack with all the cool stuff up there. I think that would look really neat. Coming around the back, of course, you have your full-size spare tire and wheel. I love that. That is really neat. And then I'm going to just open this door, but we're not talking about the trunk yet. There's a big miss here on this car. And this is another problem with getting the base trim. And if you want to go off-roading, you're going to get the base trim because you don't want to ruin a nice, expensive Defender. Check this out. No towing eyes. So that's kind of a miss, I think. Apparently it's $2,000 to retrofit towing eyes on the Defender. But if you get a Defender X Dynamic, they come included. So maybe you just get the nicer one. That's kind of what I'm thinking. All right, in the trunk now. So tons of space. Really like this plasticky material. You can just throw the dogs right in there. Seats fold down flat, of course, which is awesome. And then you get some other trickery here. You can raise and lower the rear suspension. So if I'm trying to get my Golden Retriever Ellie in, I can hit this, and I don't know if you can tell, but the whole rear of the car is just dropping down right now. And then I can raise it back up. There it goes. I don't know if you can see it over here. Other Land Rovers and other vehicles with air suspension, Volvos do this, for example, but I really do like that neat touch. Interestingly, the trailer hitch, the towing option comes with all the good off-roady stuff. So this car is spec'd with every off-road option available and not much else, which I kind of like. So the trailering option, it can tow like over 8,000 pounds, which is pretty amazing. But it also gives you all-terrain progress control. That package also gives you terrain response with configurable modes. It's kind of like you need to get that. I would just get the towing pack on every Defender. And then there's a secondary pack, which I think is called the off-road package, that gives you the locking rear diff. And I think that's probably necessary if you're going to go off-roading. This rear diff was engaged a lot when we were rock crawling with it earlier this week. Definitely made it a lot easier to go off-road. So we'll finish off around this way. Oh, one last thing about the taillights I wanted to tell you. All of the taillights on normal Defenders are red, as you can see. If you ever see a Defender with clear taillights, it means it's the Defender X. That's the top of the line one. It's like the $95,000 one. So if you ever see clear taillights on a Defender, you know they paid a pretty penny for it. And then, yeah, finishing off on the exterior, you can customize this car in so many different ways, which is so neat and so cool. And it just looks great. I mean, is there a better looking, more purposeful car on the market? I gotta say, it definitely wins design awards in my head. Not that we hold any ceremonies or anything, but this is a 10 out of 10 purpose-built design. I think they did a great job bringing the Defender into the modern era. And all the old Defender owners are like, they're ruining the brand. You know, same thing we heard when Minis went with turbochargers, and, or I should say when Minis went with the new modern generation and Porsche built a Cayenne. It's just, they didn't. They've made the Defender modern, but it does all the stuff a normal Defender should. And, by the way, it doesn't feel like you're really beating it when you take it off-road. It's so happy to be out in the wilderness crawling over rocks. And I would argue it's more capable than an older Defender as well. Coming from a true fan of the older Defender, I like this one. Let's go inside. Let's get into the interior. You'll have to forgive me for all the garbage and stuff. We've been living with this car for a week and living with it properly, as you should a Defender. I really like this touch. The painted surfaces come over to the inside of the door, and then you have these exposed bolts holding in the door cards. That's pretty neat. This car also has some pretty cool technology in it. So it has, of course, adjustable mirrors, memory seats, up to 3 of them, which is a nice touch. But then there's also a little logo right here on the front of the door. And what that little logo does is when like a bicycle's riding up to the car, it flashes red so you know not to open your door. And all 4 of them have that. That's a really neat feature. These are the 14-way seats. So you can adjust the lumbar in different ways and the height and adjustments. But take a look in the footwell here. You'll see this piece is pretty far back. It means your left foot doesn't have much place to go. You're kind of stuck between the kick plate here and this little thing. And yeah, you don't have tons of foot room in this car, but I think that's probably okay. I've driven, I think, as most like 3 hours at once in this thing, and I didn't have any discomfort, but I would have liked more movement at least. So if I have to gripe about something, I'll gripe about that. Let's go fully inside. Let's get this thing turned on. You get the nice startup of the inline 6, and we'll start, I guess, at the top down. This one is not spec'd with a sunroof, and what that means is you get this like boomy top piece here. This headliner is massive, and there's like a lot of room above, and you kind of get this reverberation. So personally, I would spec the sunroof. They also have a cloth top. I haven't sampled that or been in Land Rover with that, but for me, it's got to be the glass roof. I like that style for sure. So up here, you also have some other things. You have like your SOS button that you can call and like service. You have a glasses holder with some rubber on the inside here, but again, that just feels a little cheap, I think. And then you get the coolest feature ever. You get a third what is this thing called? The sun visor? You get one here for the middle, which is so cool. I love that feature. They really thought about using this car and in different environments, and that's really helpful. And then you get this, a really neat backup camera with one of the coolest views. And of course you can raise it up and dim the brightness, of course, and then you can change what angle you're looking at, so we can look at the mountains or what's actually behind us. So I found this to be really nice. I've driven other cars with this camera system, and I think this pulls it off way better. And then of course you get this dashboard, and this is kind of this foamy material. It's not quite leather, but feels okay. But really, truly, the best part about the interior on this car, other than the cool sun visor, is this shelf that goes across, and it goes behind the screen too. So you can like put stuff all along through here, which is super neat, and I think that's extremely useful, extremely helpful. You have a USB port up here, 2 USB ports. I mean, there's USBs everywhere for the second row and the first row. And then you also have this really neat shifter, which is cool. So the reason the shifter is here instead of here is because you can option this middle bit either to be a pass-through or another seat, which is so cool. So you can option a 6-seater or 7-seater configuration in your Defender, which I absolutely love. I do have one more gripe, and I brought this cup around for demonstration. The cup holders are interesting. This fits nicely on the passenger side, but it does not fit on the driver's side. It's a smaller cup holder here than it is over here, and this has been infuriating because I get the same Starbucks big drink every day, and getting it in and out of this cup holder has been annoying. Now I imagine you can pop this out and pop in a new one, at least I would hope, and that might be the move. That might be what you have to do. You also have, in this particular spec, a refrigerator, and you have 2 levels of refrigeration. I can go from cold to really cold, and I also have a wireless charger right here. So when this is closed, you just slide your phone right there in the center console, and you're good to go. I think that's really neat. In terms of glove box, plenty of storage space. I mean, like, it's all pretty normal, but tons of like cubby holes and grab handles everywhere. It's all really, really well thought out. From the seating position, I talked about the lack of footroom a little bit, but I haven't mentioned that the steering wheel is huge. I mean, you really do feel like you're driving a bus in this thing, and I kind of wish it was a smaller diameter, but I've gotten used to it, and I've learned to appreciate, after off-roading this car, this wheel being so big. I think that is probably the right move. Gives it a very Defender-y feel, but it's like kind of intimidating to drive this thing with such a big wheel. And then you get the wheel adjustments. This is all the way down and all the way out, and I still feel like I'm in bus driver mode. So I wish it would come out farther and come down farther. But again, we have to remember, this is not a Range Rover. This is not a Land Rover Discovery. This is a Defender, and these are kind of all the Defender-y things. But you have room to move around. Like, I've driven old Defenders, and you're like cramped in there, and they're kind of garbage vehicles, even though I love them massively. This is just a whole another step for sure. We're going to go through all of the buttons and setup and everything here in just a moment. We're going to go literally 30 minutes of setting up all of these things. So get ready if you're interested, because I go on a deep dive of the technicals. But Timon's filming in the back seat. You have anything to show them back here, Timon?
Yeah, there's 2 USB ports and then 2 12 volts. And then in the back of the seat, there are just USB-A input you can put into.
Right, because you can get a little holder for an iPad or something, like an accessory that goes into the back of the seats. I've also found the back seats to be really comfortable, never have needed more headroom. And then the Alpine windows in the back are super neat, but you really only get advantage if you get the 3rd row. Other than that, the dogs are going to be looking out. I don't think I would spec the 3rd row in this car. I think it's just going to be really tight back there. It's really a 5+2 if you spec that. And yeah, probably not needed. I think it's like $2,200 for the 3rd row. The spec on this car is $71,000. We'll go through it in a minute here too, but yeah, it's got, again, all the off-roady stuff, but the base interior, and I think it's spec'd really nicely. I would just want the glass roof, obviously, and maybe just a Defender X. And once you're spending the money on the X Dynamic, then you just get the HSE and get the good sound system, get all the other stuff, and it gets out of hand, and you're topping $82,000, $83,000. So that is your tour of the Defender. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. I really love this Tasman blue over white. I'm happy they spec'd the press cars in this color because it just looks so good, and the off-roady tires are really meaty and chunky, and yeah, it's definitely a cool machine. Definitely one of my favorite cars of the year, if not my favorite car of the year. I can't think of anything that's going to top this. This is really, really neat. So, yep, thanks so much for watching. And of course, we're going to go on a deep dive now on the interior of the technical components. And thanks for watching if you end up leaving now. Appreciate it. You join me inside now, and it's time to get everything set up like we always do. So let's go through everything here. So this is the new PIVI Pro system. First off, visually really nice. I've actually owned Land Rovers in the past, and I've never been a fan of the infotainment, or as they say in the industry, the HMI. Gosh, I hate that human machine interface term. It says we will be able to create our own profile and all that stuff. So let's definitely do that. So let's enter a name. So we're entering in Kyle. Perfect. Next. Do you have an In Control account? No. I'll do that later. I'll sign in. Pair your phone. I already have done that. Okay. So I will say, typically I like to do these on the first day that I get the car, but I've actually had the Defender for, this is my 3rd day, and we took it off-roading yesterday. So we'll talk about that when we go for a drive, but I haven't set anything up for it yet. So now I have a seat option. This is comfort. Oh, this is how you just do heated seats, but you can do the same with the button here. I'm just going to get the heated seat on full. Good, because I'm freezing, and I'm going to put my heated steering wheel on as well. Then we get a climate menu, which is kind of nice. I can sync the temperatures. Absolutely, definitely like that sync option. However, whenever you go to high, it puts the fan up, which is kind of annoying. So that's okay. Good, done. Towing and trailers. Ooh, I guess we can add in a trailer. Yeah, you can tell it what kind of thing you're towing. 1 axle, 2 axle. And then you can say the dimensions, okay, but we're not going to do all that. But nice that you can program in trailers, and I guess it does stuff with trailer sway control and other things as well. So definitely like the, what is it, around 8,000 pound towing capacity of this Defender. And I do have to admit, very rarely do we test cars that I'm actually in the market to purchase, but this is one of them. This is something I really am seriously considering adding to our long-term test fleet for at least a year coming up soon. Then we get our camera menu. This was unbelievably helpful while we were off-roading. So you can see here, I can choose where I want the cameras to be, for example, all around the car. That was kind of neat. Didn't really use that off-road, but what I did use was this setting here. It shows us exactly what each tire is doing, and then it also shows the front camera view outside of the car. Now also I can click this little button and it will show me what's underneath the car. So when I'm driving, for example, I might need to get moving a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Now it shows what's going underneath the car, which is so neat. I really love that. So just backing up here. And for some reason the diffs are locked. I don't know why you would need diff locks for backing up in my driveway. And then you have a towing menu, which actually does a really good job when you're in reverse of like lining up the hitch with the trailer. So the camera system on this car, 10 out of 10, super fast, super crisp. I will say this screen itself is relatively small, but it works well with the dashboard in this car. I would have loved to see it about twice the height, but that's just, I'm used to new cars with all this technology. This is a Defender. It's not really meant for all that stuff. Valet mode, of course. Eco data, who cares? Energy impact, eco tips, history. This is not that kind of car at all. It doesn't matter. The 4x4 info screen I absolutely loved yesterday. Tells you pitch and roll. Also tells you what your front wheels are doing, unlock or lock on the diffs. Interestingly though, I think this one's glitching out. Not a surprise here. It's showing the wheels are turned to the right, but I believe yesterday those wheels turned with my steering. So I'm not totally convinced that that's accurate right now. Then you get weight sensing, which is super interesting. So you can raise and lower the car, of course, and it adjusts what your maximum weight depth is. We're just gonna put it back to normal. You need to select off-road height to get maximum weight depth, of course. Really cool that it has little sensors in the mirrors that tells you how deep the water you're driving through is. I'd love to try that out before I give that back. Did not find any water yesterday. We're sort of in a desert climate. Then you get terrain response info. It tells you what each mode does, of course, which is kind of nice. And then you get configurable terrain response. When you go into the menus here, I'll show you all that in a second because I'd actually like to configure one. We'll talk about that later on. You can configure it. Then you get a whole weight sensing menu, which just brings you back to that same page we were on in 4x4 info. You get low traction launch, which is super neat. This is useful off-roading. I actually used it once because I was in some like icy, rocky, sandy condition yesterday. And I was like, well, that seems like we're low traction and we need to launch, we need to move. And I hit that, I put my foot pretty deep into the pedal, probably halfway or more, and the car just didn't do anything. I was like, is it working? And then it slowly started to give it power, just pushing the wheels so slightly. I thought it was so neat. And it got us out of the situation, no problem. I really like this menu. It tells you vehicle dimensions. It also changes for your off-road height and on-road height. Also gives you all of your approach and departure angles, which is super neat. So I can raise it up and you can see all the numbers adjust for our ride height that we're going to, which is super kind of cool. So I really like all of this system here. No, I just want to go to middle setting. There we go. Okay. And vehicle dimensions, then you get a voice button. I'm not quite sure what that does. I have to say this system has been super snappy, really good. And then you get the voice commands. Now I haven't been able to get the voice commands to work during my time with it so far. When I say call someone or navigate somewhere, it just says sorry. So I'm not sure what all that is.
To the voice tutorial.
I don't really want to set all that up. It could be because I haven't set anything up yet. I'm not really sure. Then you get your full navigation, which works really well when you type things in manually. We went to Costco the other day. That's right. We put in Costco. It said, here's all the ones near you. Here's their phone number. Here's when they're open until. Do you want to navigate there? And it did a great job. It even took us down a dirt road, which I thought was very Defender-y of getting us there. I prefer that. So that was really awesome. Of course, you get your phone set up. You get your media, which is just, where do you want your music to come from? And then you get the connect accounts, which I'm sure is like, okay, so you get like, I don't even know what it is. Yeah, you put Spotify in here directly, which I absolutely love that feature. Volvos have that too, a few others where you can just bake in your own, and then of course you get your weather. So I'm a big fan of these apps coming to the system. Spotify is super helpful for me. I listen to all my music on Spotify. So, good navigation system. Honestly, I didn't really use it so far. I've driven this thing 160 miles over the last 2 days. And I've just been driving it, and that's the best part about this car. We'll talk about that later, but now we need to get everything set up. I will say, before we get into all of that, you have some hotkeys over here, navigation, phone calls and music, all the hot stuff you would need to get to. You can choose your profile up here in the top left. I don't have the app for this car, but it does have connected services. You have your parking camera on the right. It also tells you the time over there. So let's click the little settings button. And it kind of goes into like these different menus, like quick menus, which I think is kind of neat. It's like you have here's all the stuff you would need instantly. You can adjust your home layout, of course, in different ways. So you can have it set up this way. And of course you can swipe through all the different things that you can set up along the way. Personally, I really don't like that so much. I prefer the normal blocky home menu, but nice that you can change things around like that. So there we go. Home screen, you can do that. Again, the two different styles I showed you before. Audio settings, you can adjust, treble, bass, subwoofer. This one has the bass system for the US, which is still branded as the Meridian system, but it's a 400 watt Meridian sound system. It's not I think it's 725 Meridian surround sound system. Yeah, you kind of need the upgraded one. This one's okay if you listen to music at a reasonable volume. It sounds really good. But as soon as you crank it up, the bass starts to distort. And for me, it's not enough of a sound system to feel like I'm really jamming out with good quality audio. So I would get, and the problem with that is though, you need to get a Defender. So this one's an SE, which is the bass trim. Then you get the Defender X Dynamic, which is the next one up. And that comes in SE or HSE trim. So you have to get the HSE under the X Dynamic trim, very confusing, I know, in order to get the Meridian upgraded sound system. So that's kind of like the one you got to get if you want all the good stuff and leather and things like that. Because I'm not a fan of this cloth around the edge of the seats. Typically I do like cloth, but in the Acorn interior, which is the interior I would want to spec, it's so weird. I'm talking about a car as if I'm purchasing it. Very rarely do we review cars that we're actually thinking about buying. And I don't like that the Acorn fabric stains very easily. So I would go for the leather upgrade because they put the fabric there to wear better for getting in and out of the car. And I totally see why. When you're in off-road ride height, you got a wheel in the air, you're like jumping down and into this thing. You're putting a lot of stress on the edge of the seat with this fabric. But the HSE trim has the leather and that doesn't stain. So I'd go for that. All right, so we have the profiles. I've done that. Connectivity, all the good stuff here, we know how all that works. Then we get vehicle driver assistance, collision avoidance. We're going to want that on very early. I like to know if I'm going to hit something. All of the safety features in this car are great. Rear traffic braking, emergency lane keeping. That seems to work pretty well. I can turn that off from the wheel here, but it's yeah, seems to push you back in the lane. No lane centering though. That is probably my biggest complaint about this car, is that driving along the highway, there's no way to have assisted steering to just keep you in the middle of the lane. I know it's a Defender, but I'm gonna road trip it, and that's one thing I kind of always said to myself, I really need that. There is an adaptive speed limiter that limits you to basically the speed limit or a little bit over. The problem with that though is it relies on the cameras and map data for speed limits, and I've been speaking to my friend who owns a Defender here in Colorado, and we have so much construction on our highways that his car is just slamming on the brakes all the time because it doesn't know the speed. This is interesting. Distance to vehicle ahead when stationary. I think normal is good. I actually thought it was relatively close on normal, but interesting that you can adjust that. That's kind of cool. Speed limit warning. And Eco Coach, no, this one's the P400 with the 396 horsepower inline six mild hybrid. We'll talk more about that when we drive it. Driver fatigue alert, yes. Find rest areas, sure. And automatic parking when we get close to something. Love all that. Safety and security. Last alarm trigger. Oh, it says that this car's never been activated, the alarm. Audible lock warning. Sure, that beeps at you when you lock the button twice. It's just a little clown horn. Two-stage unlocking, no, I just wanted to unlock everything. Drive away locking at 20, that works fine. Exterior lights. Automatic high beam, no. Don't like that feature. Home lights, 30 seconds. And we are driving on the right side of the road, and that changes the dipped beam. If you're, switching countries, for example, you can change the road, the side of the road that you're driving in. Convenience, windows, global close. Allow all windows to close by holding lock button on the key. Yes, and open by holding unlock. Love that feature, great. Mirror dip on reverse, sure. Vehicle access lowers the vehicle to access height. Yes, I actually think that's kind of needed. I would turn that off when I'm off-roading. Of course, you don't want it to drop on an obstacle, but getting in and out of this car, I've noticed it's quite high, and I've been just manually lowering it to access height. I know that's a feature in other Land Rovers. I was waiting to make this video to adjust that. Rain sensing wipers, sure, and oh, interesting. If it's gonna snow, you can put the wipers up just a bit. And for snow, I think that's really neat. And brake hold is enable. So this is basically enable to hold the vehicle on the brakes when stationary on demand. That's pushing the brakes and pushing a little harder. If you're in drive, it'll just hold the car there. And then you can also do auto brake hold when the vehicle is stationary and facing uphill. I would just turn both on, sure, why not? So cabin lighting, yes, we want that. Units, PSI, temperature, F, miles, that all works. My vehicle, there's the VIN number, service, not available. Okay, I think that's all of the settings in here. Then we get to general, voice settings. Voice command and voice feedback, no. Again, I don't really like that. I've turned the brightness up. System theme, interesting. You can do a light theme and a dark theme. This may be why it seemed a little bit hard for me to read during the day, so definitely prefer this on auto. Map theme, auto, sure. And cabin lighting is dimmed when the screen is turned off. No, I like a light cabin, actually. You can put in a pin for valet mode, that's kind of cool. Auto time and date, that works. Although I've heard some Defender owners, their cars get confused as to where they are. This car does get over-the-air software updates, not just to this the UI, but to like other modules on the car too, which is cool. Nice to see other automakers doing things like this. Of course, you can do English Australia. What? English United States. That's why it said some weird things to me. Now everything's in English US, which is where we are in Colorado. And then we get different apps. Okay, so these are all like settings for apps, I'm guessing. Auto, airflow, interesting. I prefer a soft and quiet airflow. That's pretty interesting. Live apps, software updates. Let's see. Applications up to date. Okay. Now, how do I get back to that? Got to go back into settings now. There we go. App usage, whatever. Favorite button. That is this button on the steering wheel over here. You can configure it to do a couple things. So let's see what we want. We can push this. Oh, we can't actually push that to mute. So maybe the mute makes sense. Hold mute phone, traffic alerts, upper screen off. None of these are really that useful though. I'm gonna put it to mute for a short press, and then a long press, I'm gonna do, honestly, I don't even know what I wanted to do. Cancel guide, sure. That's kind of silly. You would think you could program this to do so much more than that. Home screen, yep, we already said that. Low traction launch pop-up, yep. That's when you put it in like grass, gravel, snow. It says, hey, do you want to activate low traction launch? Media, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. You can change all your map stuff, driver display, junction view, next waypoint. Yeah, all this stuff is pretty neat, but nothing unique to this car. Then you get your phone settings. Okay, neat. Then we get notifications, allow notifications, and software update, and it is installed. This one is interesting though, because at night the whole dashboard lights up purple, and I'm not sure how to change that because this one has the center refrigerator, which means it has the adaptive lighting, but I don't see any option to change the lighting in here. You know, there's a Land Rover Defender owner right now screaming into the video that no one's watching because these videos never do well, but I enjoy to make them. And they're saying, you know, it's right here. And so I just don't see the option to change the color, but it's on a nice purple, and Alyssa, my girlfriend, likes that, so that's fine. Okay, cool. I think that's the setup over there. I'm gonna go into the setup in the main screen now, but I do want to give a shout out to this rear view mirror that can act as a camera or a glass, just regular mirror. In most cars, this is absolute garbage and I don't like them, but in the Defender, it actually makes sense because you have that big tire in the back and you can't see past it. So nice work to Land Rover. Interestingly, these buttons here on the left side change based on what I'm doing. So when I select something, you can see they go to arrows now, which is kind of neat to adjust all of this. So I like that a lot. So let's go through. Then we start with our vehicles. It says show warning, show tire information, load setting, kind of neat. So you can do normal load or light load. We have no load, so light load sounds good. Tire pressures, it says what to set them to. They're a little over right now, but kind of all over the place. That's kind of weird. We'll definitely have to adjust that before we do our MPG testing loop. Then we go up to go back. Then we get our audio source, our trip bank. So trip A, B, and auto. That makes sense. We get content. Oh, this is like what we want to cycle through, clicking the end of the turn signal on the top, I guess. Then we get, let's see what else we can go up into. Display, info panel, okay. So this is like what we want on the main thing. So we can do off, clock, 4x4 info, which honestly wasn't that helpful off-road, to be honest. Trip summary, map, and driver assistance. Yeah, none of these are all particularly that helpful. I guess driver assistance would be kind of neat because you can see when it sees a car in front of you. And then also map, of course, just to have it there. So we'll see. Then we get a layout option. We get a 2 dial. Oh, this is kind of neat. We can choose a 1 dial and then show something else on the right. We can do a full map, which is just really neat. Probably don't need that though. We can do a media display, which is your music, I'm guessing. And then we can do a full driver assistance one. But the thing is, this doesn't have that much driver assistance. It's not active steering. So I prefer the 2 dial. I like a classic gauge cluster. I like speed and tach. And that's typically how I like to roll. Then of course off-road information always, because it's a Defender and we are going to do off-roading, and we already have. And that's really it. So that's kind of very basic. You know, I'm trying to think back. My old Range Rover, I couldn't even do anything with my center display here. It was just as is, and there was always a blank space in the middle of the digital cluster. I had the first of the TFT displays in my 2010 Supercharged. Anyway, I guess that's the whole setup.